Okay, well, we won big again this weekend. Swept the board. That's 3 for 3 on the bet slip, 6 for 6 on the year so far. Our profit's just under $2,000. It's only round two. Let's recap the Saudi Grand Prix. All right, Mike. When we decided in the offseason, first off, it's ridiculous that we weren't doing a recap show. But when we sat down and realized, hey, we got to do a recap show, talk about the bets, a big part of it for me was expecting to lose a bet from time to time. Maybe not the whole slip. You know, we were always trying to win money. I thought we'd have some bets, and usually one of us tables a bet, and then we talk about it. We only bet on things if we both like it, but usually one guy's the one that tables it. I thought we'd have some losers where I'd just be able to go at you and say, it was a terrible pick, a terrible table. Here we are, 3 for 3 again, but we do have to start with the hot picks.
Yeah,
and I gotta give you your flowers. You had a great pick, and really, what was great about it? You had the Red Bull 1-2 finish. What was great about it was you found value midweek. Well, what minus 138? That line shouldn't exist ever.
No, but that is what I think. That's the mindset that we need to continue to adopt. I think part of the reason why we started doing the show, you and I exploring just betting on F1, is that I think we realized that there is value that exists. You just have to look really hard to find it.
We really got to dig.
You do. You have to dig. And if you listen back to the show that we did before the Saudi Grand Prix, we spun our tires a little bit, but then we ultimately decided, and we'll talk more about that, but we ultimately decided to choose what we just thought was going to happen and center it around the best value that we could find. Well, buddy, I'll tell you right now, I know you kept saying that we've swept the hot picks or we swept the board, but again, we did lose a bet. It was your hot pick. And man, I want to rip on you, but it was a good pick. It's not even on you. It's just Hulk loses power in Q2. Like, what do you...
I know. I had him to out-qualify K-Mag and both Alpines. I mean, the Alpines out in Q1. I'm sitting there. Easy breezy. Here we go. Easy winner with the hot pick. And then... But did they say that they didn't fuel him enough? Was that the problem with the engine? I thought I maybe heard that.
Did they say that? I think they might have, during the live broadcast, they might have hypothesized that was it. But he didn't hit the pit limiter button or something like Lewis did, but I think he lost power. I think they actually had to go through like a diagnostic on the P2 and all that stuff. So it doesn't matter. It's hard luck. That's what it amounts to for us.
It's hard luck.
It does not change the fact that I think that it was a great bet. I think that the Haas over the weekend and certainly in qualifying had an outside chance at Q3. I think if Hulk stays in the Q2 session, he's going to qualify ahead of Magnussen.
Right? Magnussen was giving him the toe when he went down.
I know.
They said, hey, Hulk, this is your weekend. K-Mag, go give him a toe. And I don't know, maybe he had too much of a toe. The engine couldn't handle it. It was a little too much for that.
Maybe Haas. It was a little bit too much for the Haas. They were still really heavy on straight line speed. I think they were the hottest through the traps the entire weekend. I mean, the car can fly, right? And I think we kind of had a bit of an exchange during the Grand Prix when we saw Magnussen take his penalties and then start holding up the pack. Like this Haas is like, you use that ERS going into a straight, you can really you can block things up, man. Like they've got the speed.
Let's talk about the Haas. I was going to get to them, and we'll get to our bet slips again. 3 for 3 on the weekend. It was a great weekend for us. We didn't have anything on the Haas. Dude, the Haas is the new Williams. Like straight line speed. Maybe they can't corner very well, but this reminded me of that when K-Mag had that train behind him. You just get flashes of Albon holding up 5 or 6 cars last season. Where at Monza, no one had the straight line speed to get past him. Doesn't really matter how slow you are on certain tracks going through the corners because no one can take you there anyways. And then when you get to the DRS zone where the heavy braking is and all the overtakes, you just can't get alongside. And that's the Haas now.
I know. And that's
crazy.
It's going to be, I think for us, there's going to be an opportunity in a race, in a Grand Prix, where we look at the board and we go, well, I think I mentioned it, not that it was something that we were going to automatically jump on, but it was plus 250 for Hulkenberg to get into the points.
I know.
Right? And whatever. I mean, we weren't going to, based on the other options that were on the board, we weren't going to bet on that. And we didn't need to ultimately in the end.
No.
But I thought that it was worth exploring that on merit. And it looks like, I mean, again, if K-Mag doesn't get 20 seconds of penalties or whatever he gets,
let's talk about that.
Yeah. Like if he doesn't get 20 seconds of penalties, which was, wow, like what an insane race from the guy. The highlight of the race maybe the highlight of the race in general.
I had 2.
Just with Haas.
So, okay.
For me was K-Mag taking that spot back after Tsunoda passes him.
Oh my god! I was just
Holy
watching.
shit.
Yeah, I watched the race back today.
Like, how wild is that?
Holy!
Yeah.
And he knew because he was never going to catch Tsunoda again, and
Yeah.
his whole plan at that point in the race was keep those damn cars behind him.
Yeah.
Oh
When he
man,
did
he got
that?
the elbows out.
Man, when he did that, I was like, oh, you have a family, man. What are you doing? Like, you can't. Are you insane? And he just took it back from you. I mean, that's always going to be Yuki. I mean, Yuki didn't do anything wrong. I think
didn't do
just
anything
K-Mag,
wrong.
K-Mag just made like one of the more unbelievable moves that you can make in that situation too.
You never see that, and actually, it's making me think right now that might be one of the big problems of the sport. Is it's pretty much understood with the drivers. You're overtaking me. Like you had the DRS. Yuki got that done before the braking zone. We never see a driver if they get passed on the straight to then go, oh, I'll switch back, go back around the outside, brake later. Usually, you just see the guy forfeit the point.
I know.
Or forfeit the place. I mean.
Or forfeit the place, yeah. It was, so that was, for me, I think that was probably the highlight of the entire weekend. And the fact that it essentially netted out Hulk to be able, Hulk was on the wrong strategy, and they just were able to manage the race in a way where he still gets a points finish. I mean, that would have been, can you imagine the sweat that we would have been feeling watching that play out? Like, oh my God, is the window going to be big enough?
Yeah.
Had we gone plus 250 on him to get Hulk to get into the points, that would have been a wild bet. It would have been
the
crazy
irony
to
of
be
that
on.
would have been that, or was it? I think it was the group maybe that we liked where it had the plus money, and K-Mag was in that group. We'd be cheering for K-Mag
That's true.
in the moment,
Yeah.
but knowing that that's only going to help Hulk.
100%.
Dude, and he built the gap to give Hulk the free pit stop.
I can't even believe he was able to do that. And he was, I mean, the guy was managing his pace, but again, though, the fact that
It's the track.
It's just the track allowed him to do what he, well, sorry, it's a combination of the track, that particular layout, plus the Haas's ability to maintain, they had the best straight line speed, like I said before.
Well,
right, like
but that's what I mean. This track,
100%.
there was only 2 overtaking spots,
That's
and
it.
they were both after long straights where
Exactly.
it didn't matter how slow K-Mag was through sector 1. He was a second and a half off the pace. The talent to drive that slow and not let anyone pass you.
It is wild.
Do you know how it ended up?
Get his elbows out. Yeah.
This is new to me.
What?
Admittedly,
What?
when they count, you know how his penalty got applied? He only lost 1 spot. 20 seconds with that train that he held up should have put him 20th, right? Like after the DNFs, 18th. But if you get lapped, it stops being times. So everyone after Hulk pits, let me explain this to you. After Hulk pits, right? So K-Mag has done his work. He then sped up enough so he got his pace going where him and Albon out of that group didn't get passed by Verstappen. Everyone else that he held up got passed. So when his penalty gets applied, their times, I'm looking at it right now, it just shows plus 1 lap. They only did 49 laps.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So he gets applied behind Albon, who didn't get lapped. But that's it. He only lost 1 place for the 20 seconds penalty.
I didn't even realize that.
So, and he got 10 of those seconds in that defense.
I know.
Who was it? Yuki
my God.
or
Yuki.
Albon? Yeah, Yuki.
It was Yuki.
Yeah. He's like, I don't care. Give me another 10 seconds. But then the ability to speed up and not get passed by the end of the race, he only lost 1 spot.
Man, that actually is. Can you imagine if that was, I guess you could end up in a situation where that ends up playing out as part of like a group bet that you make? Because obviously, can you imagine you end up winning or losing a group bet because of that? Because cars get passed, but one guy doesn't, and the penalties just then don't drag him down on those grid positions. That would be a crazy way to win or lose a bet.
Like, and now we know in that moment you'd be cheering.
I didn't know that.
I'd have Max's cam. I'd open it up. I'd be like, all right, Max, let's go. Vamos, start passing people. Blue flags all over the place.
I had no idea that was a thing. That's
crazy. So Haas finishes 10 and 12 in that race.
Yeah, what a well learned, I guess. Ultimately, in the end, for K-Mag to get a 12, P12 is really great for him. He earned it. I mean, his first indiscretion. Oh God, who was it against? No, I can't even remember. The squeeze.
It was in all pits, right? Or
no. He squeezed somebody. Was it Ocon? I think it might have been Ocon. Yeah,
maybe Ocon took advantage of that mess with Yuki and K-Mag. Yuki lost a spot to Ocon in that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was crazy. You mentioned Sector 1, actually. I just like right away, the first thing that came up to me was just that all the cams, all the Lewis on board, and just following Lando and him just ripping through Sector 1. Oh my. Wild.
Well, we just talked about the track. So that played into the Haas defending. That 100% played into our McLaren versus Mercedes.
Oh, big time.
And I mean, when you look at it again, McLaren's had the total advantage through sector 1, which we expected. So I think Lando one lap built 7/10 just in sector 1 going through those corners. So by the time Lewis gets to the DRS zone, where the Mercedes had the second fastest car behind the Haas in a straight line this weekend, crazy. Lewis just couldn't close that gap. So it was the perfect setup for them to stay in the positions that they were on the grid. And ultimately, that's what we bet on. We liked the McLarens starting ahead of the Mercedes.
Yeah.
And they held it the whole race just because of the track characteristics and the differences in their car.
Yeah, that's the differences in their car. So McLaren versus Mercedes, like we make the bet. And
Yep.
then also when you think, and I kind of mentioned this when I did the bet slip video, but you know, I think the inherent baked in advantage that McLaren has at this point is, again, you're doing this, you've got the same mechanical platform, you're moving in the same direction conceptually. McLaren is just ahead. It is what it is. Not that Mercedes can't close the gap, because they've, I mean, again, as the factory team that's supplying, the power unit and some other components.
We're going to come back to this,
right? Like you should be able to optimize your car better than theoretically your customer can. Theoretically, right? And I'm very bullish on Mercedes for this. What I find odd though, and I kind of want to get your feedback on it, is like with Mercedes. So Bahrain is interesting because of the fact that they just didn't take the cooling that they needed in order to deal with the power unit overheating, right? Like, so that was that's just like a misunderstanding about the concept, the car itself. Like you don't know. It's very new. It's green. It's a very green mistake. What do you mean? Why do you say you don't know?
I think they're making mistakes.
They're making mistakes, but they're making mistakes because they're unfamiliar with the car.
No, but they were familiar with the car in Bahrain. They said that the overheating, the cooling issues they had in the race did not show up in all of the testing and didn't show up in the practice. It caught them off guard.
Yeah, and but that could be a result of different
I don't know,
atmospheric environmental conditions.
Now they're saying their data in the simulator is not matching. Like they're blaming their data. And that I'm starting to get a little concerned. Like, I don't know. We have the future on them over Ferrari.
No, I don't.
This is a data-driven sport.
Yeah.
You can build around what if you have bad data, you're in the wrong direction. So, and I don't know.
This question of what is wrong with Mercedes simulation tools has existed since the beginning of the ground effect car era, because it was those very simulation tools that told them they could develop the W13 the way that they developed the W13.
Okay, I'll push back on that in that porpoising caught everyone. No one's simulation caught porpoising. And that was the big thing with the Merc.
No, that's true. But I still think that all of the work that was being done to rectify that issue, plus modify the car console for the W13 and W14, all of those decisions were being made based on the tools that they like. I guess my question more is, have they just not calibrated their simulation tools properly still? I'm going to caveat that by saying, I don't think that's the problem right now. I think, you bring James Allison in with his familiarity with developing these cars. I can't imagine that they're still wrong on the simulation tools. I truthfully think, and we're going to find value at some point really soon, that there's going to be certain tracks where this car, so again, mechanically set up the same way as the McLaren. I just find it interesting that those two cars are in opposite directions right now. McLaren, really draggy, really bad in slow corners, really great in the high speed sections, really like amazing in the high speed sections, better than any other car in the high speed sections. The Mercedes, conversely, really great on straight line speed, good enough in slow corners. We saw that in Bahrain, and horrible in the high speed stuff. Like they were the worst. I think it was turns 6 to 10, like the high speed,
couple of high speed chicanes.
Exactly, right in the sector 1. They were the slowest, like slower than Alpine, like slowest car through that section. Like when Lewis is, I think what made those onboards really shocking in that pursuit of Norris is that that's what the gap was, the fastest car and the slowest car in sector 1. That's what it ended up being. That's why it was a crazy contrast, right? And that, I'm wondering, it's odd that seems kind of baked into this car concept, right? It's odd that it's right.
Well, it's odd, dude. It's the complete opposite of last year. Do you remember Silverstone last year?
Oh yeah,
where Lewis went on the
and
the
Barcelona.
team. He's like the McLaren that's so fast in a straight line, and it was the exact same scenario, but just opposite positions. Where last year, Lando or Lewis would close during all the high speed, the Maggots and Beckett's, and then he couldn't do anything in the straight. And now it's the exact same thing we saw this year, just flipped.
That is odd. I wonder, I don't know how much of that with Mercedes can be remedied. Well, this is so okay. Hold on, I'll take a step back. McLaren, since the beginning of this generation of car, has had this fundamental problem with slow speed corners. They haven't been able to get the slow speed balance right in the car.
Mm-hmm.
The car used to be shit, and then now it's actually really great in high speed, and it's really bad in low speed, and it seems to be okay, I guess, in medium speed, just by virtue of it being on a gradient. And it's weird that Mercedes would be so much in the opposite direction of that. You know what I mean? I guess I don't know how they could have developed a car so that it would just end up being really great in straight line speed.
That's my
it's
point.
Not a draggy car. It's missing downforce. Obviously, it's not a draggy car by that perspective. But
that's kind of my point. It's so odd with Mercedes that maybe it is their data that's bad. How
possible?
Yeah.
But we're going to be again. I truthfully think so. There's going to be an opportunity at some point to exploit that car's good characteristics and an increasing level of familiarity with the car concept.
Sure.
And I'm
an
saying
upgrade package.
No, I'm going to say even before a third of the way through the season when they start bringing those upgrades. I can see something possibly. What do we got? What are the next three?
Australia next in 2 weeks, and then it's Japan and China. I've heard. I think Red Bull's bringing upgrades to Japan.
Okay.
I think Japan's a circled race for upgrades.
Yeah, Japan, it would be horrible for them.
I like that Japan's earlier in the calendar. And then China's new for you and I. They haven't been going since we started the show.
I don't know the circuit.
I like driving it. I haven't driven it in a while, but I liked it when it was part of the calendar in the seasons.
What is it comparable to? Can you think of anything?
No, you're gonna put me on the spot. I don't know. Pretty sure it goes under a bridge, maybe.
Cool.
If I'm thinking of the same track.
I don't know.
I haven't driven it yet. Got to get in there.
Okay.
I was driving Australia.
Yeah, that's fine.
Which I don't think is going to be great for the McLaren, and they're already saying that. It's got more slow speed.
It's going to be tough on them, and it's probably going to be good for the Mercedes. Actually, so think about this.
I know.
Hey, next week,
we're gonna have a different opinion. I know.
The next race, literally, you might already. So bookmakers, already probably.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
They're going to have to do what they're going to have to follow the public sentiment. People are going to be higher on McLaren. They're going to think McLaren over Mercedes. We might be in a position where Mercedes is the right call.
We might be.
Albert Park already.
We might be able to just flip flop between them each week.
100%. Just depends on the track characteristics. You got to hope that they understand enough about the car to set it up properly, which they're obviously struggling with. I think that the problem, Mercedes not being able to figure out how to set their car up in Jeddah, is not an issue with just not having enough time to get the setup right. I think it was that you were never going to be able to set the car up right in Jeddah.
You keep bringing me back to they had the right setup in the simulator, which they get to the track and it's the wrong data.
Well, I don't they had.
I don't know that
simulator. You have the best. You don't have the right setup. You might have just the best possible setup for the car based on its limitations.
Sure,
and then maybe it's slightly below what you think it's going to be once you actually get it on track, because that's real world is obviously usually pretty different. I think they're 95 to 99%.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll say this: even if they're fast in Australia, if they come out after the race and say, "Yeah, we didn't expect to be that fast," I'm going to maintain this. Their data is bad. So let's just see. Yeah, it's a very easy reason or explanation for what's going on and why they're so confused.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and then I think I kind of said this on the show too. The one thing that concerned me about betting against the Mercedes is that you get that answer a lot where it's we had no idea why we were good, we had no idea why we were bad type of thing.
Yeah,
and this might be Australia, might be this we had no idea why we were good. And then just what you and I potentially are oh, maybe we do know why you're
good. We just figured out.
Well, Mercedes is hilarious because they're hilarious though, because what you and I do that's different than what Mercedes does is we go, oh, we think that you're going to be better than X team so that we can make a bet on you. Right. Mercedes goes, oh, we don't know why we didn't win the race. Oh,
that's true,
sure, right? Oh, we didn't win the race.
We thought we had pole here.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna get pole for sure.
Yeah,
they just still have not properly calibrated not their tools but their expectations.
They definitely thought they were going to get the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso.
Man, Fernando, he drove an amazing race.
Stays P5.
Yeah, I don't know what. So what do you make of that? Is that just we
I
talked
make
about
of
this a bit
it.
on the show?
Yeah, I
Like
don't know. I didn't want to bet on him because I didn't really know. He looked too good, and
he
then it
did.
ended up that he was great.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I'll be seeing it clearly one week, but for now I'm okay avoiding them. I mean,
yeah.
before
It's
we
hard.
move, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, no. I was going to say it's just hard. The Aston Martin seems like it's a hard car to peg down at this point, just because of the performance. Like in Bahrain last year, this is hard. It's very difficult to contrast the beginning of last year with the beginning of this year, and
You
like what
can't.
you're seeing from some of the cars, and like is that a good relative performance, or is it just things have changed fundamentally with what corner spread they're going to do well in? Like you wouldn't have thought Aston Martin would be fifth. Like you don't. I can't imagine
Didn't
Aston.
they?
They
Weren't
were
they
able
one
to
of the
maintain
few?
fifth place.
Weren't they one of the few teams that got slower when you compared 23 to 24 times in
100%.
Bahrain?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but that was, I think, not
Now
slower. You mean slower to like relative?
was
to
it
the
slower
field.
to the field, or
Slower
did
to
they
the field.
actually get slower?
No,
I
I think
thought
they got
that they
slower
were
to the
maybe
field.
slow. Okay,
No,
okay.
I think that was Alpine. I think that was
Well,
Alpine.
definitely
Yeah,
Alpine.
it's
Oh
definitely
my
Alpine.
god.
Yeah.
Before we move on from the Merc and McLaren,
Mm.
everyone can talk about how F1's boring. Max is going to win every race. What an entertaining race for us when we pick McLaren versus Mercedes.
I know.
And
Man,
the way that they
played out.
paired themselves off, where
Yeah.
it was just George and Oscar fighting it out, and Lewis and Lando really fighting for like a points position, but for half the race fighting at the top. So they're the ones that are getting all the action on the screen. It was great, and I
It
loved
did
it
work
because
out
we were ahead
really
the whole
well.
time.
I know that was actually a really great feeling, and you're just waiting for like one of them to blow up, obviously, but didn't happen. And I agree. I mean, hey, part of what makes what we do so much fun is that, yeah, like is it kind of annoying to watch a race and have who's going to win? Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Like I think that's not great for any fan. You know what? It's kind of fun to bet on the race then. Like if you want to give yourself some additional enjoyment while watching F1, this might be the best time to actually start betting on F1
Because it's a lot of fun and making money's fun.
well, making money's fun. Like we enjoy making money, but I'm just saying like having a horse in the race where you're not just hoping this guy wins, this guy doesn't win type of thing. Like that Max is going to win every race. So why don't you, and Checo's going to finish in second, just like that's why we made our futures bets the way we did.
Yeah.
So like for us, it's great because you have other things in play, and the way that race played out. I mean, I don't know how many people were paying attention to those battles, but they were great.
They were great. Well, I had their all four driver cams open.
That makes it so much fun.
And dude, think back to Bahrain, having Carlos, like, yeah, okay, Max, go win the race. We have Carlos battling with like for that podium position, which is going to win us a bet. It's a really enjoyable way to watch out.
It is. It was a lot
for
of fun.
Sure.
It definitely made it again. It makes it way more enjoyable, and it's fun. Sometimes we find a way to get Max involved in the betting, but the bets that win that are part of a battle. Actually, I take that back. I love it. I was very pleased. So the Mercedes McLaren bet, yeah, that was great because there was a bit back and forth. It was exciting. It was in jeopardy a little bit.
I never felt like it was. We were talking during the race.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, no. I love that our team split the strategies. Okay, so early safety car, you've got a choice to make.
But they were racing each other. Yeah.
No, they were never racing each other, but we were protected.
I'm saying McLaren and Mercedes were racing each other, so it made sense that they split the strategies. Like that's their battle is with each other ultimately in the end.
But Mercedes really could have done either.
Sure.
Actually, no. I loved it that we had both teams on the split strategies, and we had the McLaren ahead in both matchups. I never felt like that was in jeopardy the whole race.
Starting ahead, track position mattered in the end. Like that was the benefiting factor, right?
And the bookmakers, they had the audacity to make them equal money, like not even money, but they were both minus 150.
Oh yeah.
And it was, how are we getting? Yeah.
Yeah.
They
essentially treated them like when we looked across the book.
Yeah.
There were other props where they were essentially being treated as equal.
They had the same line on top six. They had the same line on the podium, even though it was a long line. They still gave them the same line.
Yeah,
it was
we
crazy.
We lost a little bit of value in the team matchup bet because they have to bake in, I guess. It was minus 138 or something like that. So we lost a little bit of value because of the track position, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, like that doesn't. Both of them in front, like that was crazy that we ended up paying, essentially 38 points away from even money on it. That was crazy.
Crazy.
I know.
Crazy.
It was a good find. It was a great find. You came right away with that. So
I did.
Big props to you. And I was waffling a little bit on it, but it was a good bet in the end.
And it's not like I convinced you or anything. Like we're not trying to
we talked about
defend our bets. We just
No.
talking through the race. Yeah, Cream rises to the top.
Mhm.
So that was one, the Merc or the McLaren over the Merc. Then we had, well, you mentioned Checo. So we had Checo top 2. Again, like this race was always going to finish 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
We found better value in Charles by not going with a strict podium bet.
I know.
And then, I mean, we gave up a little bit of value by going Checo top 2 instead of exact 2 or without Verstappen. But
a little bit, though. We talked about it. Like, what was
peanuts.
it, 30? Was it 30 points or something? Less than that. It might have been 20
I think
points.
at the extreme, like from exact 2 to top 2, we gave up 30 points.
Yeah. No,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. That was I think that made me, not that I was ever in jeopardy, but that made me more comfortable with the bet in general. What this tells you is you really just need to bet on what you think is going to happen. Right? Like, we went through it all. We couldn't see a scenario in which it was in Checo 2, Leclerc 3. I mean, you could see it how some of the props were being laid out in terms of we looked at the combination TriCast or the straight TriCast, and there was the expected order quite clearly was Max, Checo, Leclerc.
Right.
We're going to see that a lot this season, obviously, and it's up to us to find a way to best exploit what essentially the book is telling you is going to happen. Right? That's why you look through. That's why you explore these different finishing position props instead of looking at podiums and that type of thing, right?
Especially when you've got Checo in a Red Bull and he's never going to match his teammate. So,
no.
Like, I don't know, for a few weeks, we might just be on whatever the best value or the smartest value we can find on Checo to finish second.
Yeah. It's going to disappear quickly, though, too. I can imagine at some point. I think even with him, it's hard. It'll never fully disappear because he's never going to qualify well. Right, he's always probably going to be on the second row or maybe the third row. So you're right. Like, it probably does make sense to continue to try to exploit it as best as possible.
Wait until the McLaren starts putting it up there in qualifying.
Yeah, it'll make it.
And then over the course of the race, the Red Bull with the tire dag, they're still going to take off and they're going to finish 1-2, but we might find value.
Yeah. Well, the craziest thing about this weekend and how, when we were doing our show, it almost seemed so obvious that, like, I was overthinking things, and I even said that.
You said that, yeah.
We're overthinking it for sure. We just need to go with what we think is going to happen. And I'll tell you right now, if you really look back in hindsight, it was an easy weekend to handicap. It was an easy weekend to handicap. And I'll say the reason that it was Carlos Sainz getting appendicitis. Right? Like, appendicitis is the difference in that being a really difficult book. It could have been, because it was hard. Like, everywhere else you looked outside of the top 2. Outside of the top 3, outside of the podium. Like, I mean, the McLaren, that was a good find by you. But everywhere else we looked, man, you weren't finding what you wanted.
What I wouldn't have loved is if Carlos was P4 on the grid or P3. True. I wouldn't have wanted to pick between him and Charles to be that exact P3. And that was our third bet, was Charles P3. But you can't say never. If Carlos has a tough qualifying and he's in 6th or something.
Yeah.
No, maybe 6 is a bad example. But I'd be looking at him, okay, so now where can he go to move up? You might get good odds because that Ferrari's still faster than the rest of the grid.
I guess
so. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends. It's completely dependent on where he qualifies, obviously, too.
But what it meant to us this week was he was not a threat to P3, and nobody was a threat to P3.
No.
Nobody.
Well, we talked about it. We thought that there was going to be 10-second gaps between the leaders, between the podium, and there essentially was. That's actually literally what happened in the end.
There was. Checo kind of split it. Before the penalty, he was slightly under, but then after the penalty, slightly over.
Yeah.
And then Charles had another 5 to Checo after the penalty, but 10 before. Right. And he had 14 to Oscar.
How wild is that?
How wild is that?
It was just literally 10-second gaps, Sunday drives for everybody on a Saturday. It was crazy.
And yet it's not wild at all because it was
not
always
wild.
Going to happen.
Yeah, it's not wild at all. You're right. It's just exactly based on where they were projecting out in terms of race pace, where they were starting on the grid. It's one of those things where you just, as long as misfortune doesn't befall somebody up there, and it really was never in jeopardy for any of them. I mean, they didn't have any dicey moments at all. Then it's kind of obvious.
That was, I love South Park. There's a scene that I always go back to with Captain Hindsight. And he goes to a fire after the fire's gone. He's like, you guys really should have built a fire escape. And then everyone loves it. Like, thank you, Captain Hindsight. That's his superpower. It's
That's
like
sick.
he would have come in here and he's like, you guys should have bet on some sort of Max Checo Charles. And everyone, we would be like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
He came to
Captain
us before the
Hindsight.
race. Like, that was always going to happen. And I love that we found a way to bet on it when we didn't see value in a straight dry cast. Some
No.
weeks it might be plus 400,
Wow.
but
What was
there
it?
was no
Like,
value in it.
plus 125?
It started at plus 110 when we first went to it. And then 20 minutes later, when we went back to it during the show, it was minus 110. Minus money
Man,
for the
that is-
straight podium finishing order.
So that's shocking. Actually, you're right. It was minus money, which so we ended up with
Plus
140.
140.
We ended
Plus
up with
140 on
for,
Charles
like,
exact P3,
yeah.
which is part of that bet.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it just depends on where the money's going. But
But who
That's-
else? Dude,
yeah,
who
yeah.
else spends an hour and looks at every line and compares them the way we
you have
do?
to be just weird guys. If you have a couple of weird guys who are willing to sit down and waste their weekends and make their wife mad at them, essentially.
Not a
you
waste.
could do it. Yeah,
Not a
it's not a
waste.
waste. It's not a waste. You're right. It's not a waste. It's not a waste.
No, when you make $970 after
No.
the hot picks and it, like,
Yeah.
that's not a waste. No,
It's not a waste.
it's a
Yeah.
couple days hard work.
But it is, again, we just have to make sure that you are 0 for 2 on hot picks, though. It sucks. Like I'm saying, it sucks. The way that you lost is shitty. You should have
Yeah.
won the bet,
Yeah,
but you lost.
I
And you're
lost.
0 for 2. Which
yeah.
means you have to do the stupid video.
I have 2 weeks to prep. It's
You
fine.
have 2 weeks to
And
do that.
you know what?
It's gonna suck.
I'll tell everyone what my hot pick's going to be in Australia. It's going to be Max, then Max, Charles in any order qualifying, dual forecast qualifying.
Yeah.
They're going to be the front row. That's my bet. That's
That's
my
a
hot
good
pick.
bet. That's
I'm
a
locking
really
it
good
in
bet.
now.
you know what,
I want
man,
any order.
that's a really good bet.
Because Charles might get him on
Yeah.
the day. Like, who knows? He's never going to win the race, but he might get him on pole. But they're going to be the front row for. It's been 7 in a row, Mike, that they've had the front row.
Yeah, like Charles is like he's ever since they brought, I think it was the floor to Suzuka. Ever since they brought that,
Yeah,
over,
maybe, yeah.
that dialed back in, got rid of the understeer in the car, dialed back in the oversteer. Like he's just been, he's won with the car. He's unbelievable. He's historically good at qualifying.
Historically good at qualifying.
Yeah. And the best part is you'll find that line. It'll open after FP3 after FP2. It's going to open at like minus 110. It'll be minus money. 100%.
Yeah,
Actually, it might be
yeah.
like minus 150.
After
And you should just
Lewis,
still take it.
After Lewis or Alonso leads FP2,
Yeah, yeah. Something
they
stupid like that.
top the table. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll still be
Oh, well,
minus
fine.
money. It'll be minus 150. And it should open at like minus 250.
I think
And
I'm
you should
locking it in now at minus
I
200.
would just take it. I would just take it. I agree. Yeah. I would take it at minus 200. I would
I
make
need
your
a
hot
win.
pick so
I
you can
need
get
a
a win.
win.
I would
Yeah.
just take it and get a win. 100%.
I need a win on
That's
the
a
board.
great idea. Yeah. Good for you.
I tried that this week.
Yeah.
I went after a smart pick. I thought it was smart.
You did great. You did great, man. I'm being both sympathetic and patronizing at the same time.
You are
did great.
doing a great job at it. It's
You did
frustrating.
great.
Yeah,
you did
Thanks,
great.
man.
And you just couldn't get it. You tried hard, but you couldn't do it. Just bad luck, buddy.
How about Checo building the gap? Gets the 5-second penalty for the unsafe release.
Yeah.
Again, right away, I'm like, nah, doesn't matter.
Nothing.
Hit 2.7, I think, when they applied the penalty,
Yeah.
or when he got the penalty. I was
was
like, yeah,
wild.
he's 2.7 already.
It
He's
was crazy, man. It was crazy to watch that without, like, because obviously he gets the unsafe release. It 100% was like our bets have been hurt in races because of like penalties or guys doing weird things. This was like, okay, no, he 100% deserves it, right?
But
Lando
even
with the-
still,
with the
we
jump
bet on
start.
Checo, and he
I
goes
know.
and gets a penalty.
I know it had to happen.
Yeah, Lando with
Yeah,
the jump
Lando
start.
gets
right.
like it's just like it's nuts. Like everybody we touch, right?
Yeah.
But it's crazy to think that I still never was concerned at
No.
all about losing that bet.
By the way, so he finished before the penalty. Checo finished 8 seconds behind Max. Do you think that's because he was pushing and Max wasn't?
Yeah,
Or I have maybe a theory that
No.
Max's tire
Wrong.
management.
no,
Listen, hear me out.
okay,
His tire management delta over even Checo is like he's so much better with the tires that when we get to a track like Bahrain, where the tires really matter, we're going to see Max have an even bigger gap to the field and to his teammate, where, like they said it at Jeddah, the hard tire could have done the entire race.
yeah.
So it didn't matter that they went on the hards early. There's no tire deg there. So we saw a smaller gap. maybe. Or do you
Yeah,
think
that's
Checo was really pushing for the penalty
No,
because of the penalty?
Well, I think. Sorry, you threw me off there. I thought you were going in. You actually went into.
I
the
know.
directions, which
That's
is
why I
great.
pushed through it. You tried
Yeah.
to cut me off.
Fair enough. I was trying to cut you off hard. Yeah. Okay. No, I agree with you in part. I mean, part of it was, of course, that Checo was pushing to cover off the penalty,
Sure.
and I think obviously, yeah, like Max is literally on another planet when it comes to managing the tires. I also think that he probably just wasn't like he was probably
There's no reason.
dialed down in engine mode, so he wasn't.
Yeah.
You don't need to put hard kilometers on the PU when you're in the position that he was in, right?
Right.
So I think that's
Right.
probably it too. I think there's a combination
Yeah.
of things. Ultimately, in the end,
Combination.
that led to that gap, like not being what we thought it was going to be. He
Still ended
he
up
doesn't-
being over 10 seconds, though. The penalty applies.
That's the craziest thing. In the end, it
That
still
still
ended
hits.
up being over 10
Yeah.
seconds. I know.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah. The Grand
It still
Slam
hit.
didn't hit.
It still hit. I know.
Grand
the
Slam didn't
did
hit. Nope.
Yeah.
Lando led.
It's true.
So that just shows you anything can happen. You know what didn't happen, though, that would have fucked us was a safety car
100%.
at the end. Because bye-bye gap for Checo.
Yeah, that would have been tough. Yeah, that would have been tough.
How
Actually,
bad
so-
would that? And then we lose him and Charles.
Yeah, that would have been.
That was doomsday. We
You know what?
needed it clean at the end.
I actually didn't even. I wasn't even for some reason. I wasn't concerned. I guess because of how things were progressing through the race. But like,
Well,
I-
Stroll
that
was
would have
already
been-
out, so
yeah, well, that's true. Like the risk of
Yeah.
what was
and one of the Alpines had
what was
already
inevitably
gone
going to
out.
happen? Yeah, exactly. The things that were inevitably going to
Yeah.
happen already happened. You're right. They happened way early in the race. That's true.
Yeah.
That's fine. You wanted to take Lance Stroll. I can't believe you're so stupid.
I didn't want to take it.
Yeah, you did.
No, my exact wording was, "I'm surprised you're not looking at this." I didn't say, "Let's go Stroll, go Stroll."
You're surprised?
No.
I'm not looking at this on a track with walls everywhere.
Okay, let
You
me
thought it
let
was
me hit,
odd?
Let me hit play. I said, "I'm surprised you're not looking at this." You hate Stroll. We don't like Stroll.
Oh,
that's
you're
what
just saying-
happened on the show.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were saying that like no, you're right.
Because we went Group 1, Group 2, then you
Yeah,
skipped
yeah.
Group 3, and you went right down to Hulk. Which again, good eye.
Yeah, I didn't.
But
even
you
look.
didn't know
Didn't
that
even look.
Haas was going to play the team game. Who knew they had that in them?
No. I also thought that Nico. I mean, again, if he's not on that strategy, if he, obviously that was the wrong move by you. You strand a guy, you strand Norris,
Yeah.
you strand Hamilton, you strand Hulkenberg. Like it just didn't end up working out because of the deck. But like Hulk would have gotten if from 15th in a regular race without the split strategies, he would have got the points to finish. I'm confident in that because Lance Stroll was always going to come out. So I'm saying that spot. Was
Yeah,
always
but he
gonna
would
be
have had
available.
work to do to pass a bunch of cars that he did.
He could have done it though. I
He
think they
didn't
had
have to do
the. I think they had the straight line speed to be able to do it.
They're so bad during the corners. You can't set up the DRS zone.
Maybe
That's
yeah,
like
probably
the,
true.
that's what we
Yeah,
saw with the.
That's true.
It
Yeah,
would have been
maybe-
stalemate probably, and that's why
Yeah,
it
it
was
could have
stalemate for Kevin.
Yeah, it could have been. You're right.
You know
Maybe
what,
might
though,
have had
dude?
trouble.
Like, so we have 5 good teams, 5 bad teams. Right now, one of the bad teams just snuck a point. This back half of the championship is whenever Stroll crashes, there's a point up for grabs.
That's
Who's
it.
going to go snag it? This point for Haas could mean 7th at the end of the year instead of 10th. Like
It
who?
might just. it
Where
might
are
just
teams
mean-
going to get points?
Maybe it just means 6th place with 1 point.
Yeah, how many? Can you imagine how many times is Stroll going to
Can
crash?
you imagine that? How many times is he gonna crash? Imagine he just really buckles down and doesn't crash for the rest of the year, and they just that's it. Like they
Can't
finish
imagine.
sixth,
Couldn't even
1 point.
imagine it.
I can't imagine. There's
No,
other, like
couldn't
yeah,
even.
there's so many other tracks with walls. It's going to be a problem for him.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. We're not gonna waste our time imagining a scenario that's impossible, right?
Last thing I had noted was just for future reference, Jeddah's going to claim that it has all these DNFs, and it's going to claim that wasn't a Gasly DNF because of Jeddah. All right, that's Alpine. That's Alpine being Alpine.
Yeah, there's
C'est la
trash.
vie.
Yeah, it's just a trash team that's in complete turmoil, failing to even just get their car onto the grid to start. Like that's hilarious.
It's trash.
Man, are they bad?
But
Everything about the car is bad.
also Jeddah was kind of trash. Like from what it's supposed to be, you only got 1 car out. You're supposed to get 3 cars out.
Yeah.
And don't let it claim the Gasly. That's Alpine.
That's true. But next we have our favorite. I don't even want to. Do you remember watching the Australian Grand Prix last
I
year?
remember.
How we lost
We're
all
talking
our
about
money?
all about the Haas.
Yeah.
We were on the Williams
Yeah.
because it had the straight line speed.
Oh my god! It started with that. It started with Albon, who was literally I've never seen the guy. He was having I think his best weekend of his career. The way
Yeah.
that his practice sessions went, the way that he qualified. I think it was the best weekend of his career. For him to just fly off the road the way that he did, and that was the beginning of absolute fucking chaos for us in that race. The way
Yeah.
that we lost all those bets, the way
Alpine
the
double
restart.
DNF.
I know, obviously we're on them. Like I love not being past Mike. Past Mike,
Yeah.
he's so stupid.
Yeah.
Right? That guy.
Yeah. He was so dumb.
Current and future Mike. Yeah, but past Chaps is arguably worse. Arguably worse at this than past Mike. I would say
was looking for long shots. He was a dog.
Past Chaps was looking for long shots.
Not as much of a dog anymore.
Past Mike was for some reason on the Alpine. Like I loved Alpine.
You loved the Alpine.
I made this. I'll never. As long as we do this, I will never let myself live down the Alpine futures bet. Like
I will never let you.
That's the worst bet I've ever made in the history of like me betting on things.
Yeah, that was.
And I've taken some dogs, dude.
And you thought you were so smug for the couple of weeks because the McLaren was struggling early.
Like, that was the best part. Of like, look at Alpine. They're so great, right? Like, the McLaren doesn't even have a wind tunnel. That's what I said. I was like, oh, they don't even have a wind tunnel. They don't even have a technical structure. They're in turmoil. Alpine, you know what I said? I think I said this too. I was like, dude, oh, you should go back and clip this and just make me look so fucking stupid. I was like, Alpine, one of my biggest arguments, literally the infrastructure and all that type of stuff. I'm like, Alpine has a plan. Yeah, Alpine has good management and good leadership and a plan. How stupid. Like,
is there anyone from that management that's still around?
No, they're all gone. They're all gone. Their plan, now they say plans. They're like, dude, we just want to try to get better. That's all. Like, that's their plan. Their plan is like,
works team, man.
We just want to get better. That's all it is, man. And I was using that logic as a reason that McLaren. I'm like, oh, McLaren's in turmoil. Right? Yeah, they don't have. They're still trying to set up. They fired James Key. They're trying to set up their technical structure now.
They don't even know how many races it's going to take.
When are they going to get Rob Marshall? When is David Sanchez going? That's was it David Sanchez? Whose name? I can't remember his name.
I don't know.
That guy. Yeah, the guy from Ferrari. Who's whatever. They got all three guys. I was like, that's their problem. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the management structure. Hilarious. I'm dumb.
Yeah, past Mike was dumb. Current Mike's on a roll,
buddy. He's sharp.
He's on a roll. Hit the hot pick.
Yeah, this version of Mike with pink eye and sunglasses, he's sharp right now.
Yeah, you're gonna have to keep the pink eye going.
I might
get it again in 2 weeks.
You have to get my daughter to just lick her hands and touch my eyes, like that's how you end up with this stuff, right?
All right, guys. Tune in in 2 weeks to see if Mike has pink eye. Like and subscribe.
Exactly. Yeah.